Hey everybody, welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we want to make marriage real, fun, and simple. This week we're talking about how do we make Christmas great for our marriage. I'm CJ, and as always, I'm excited to be sitting here with our formerly newlywed 3-year marriage veteran, Afton.
Yes, by this point, I will be married for 3 years.
Yes. By the point this comes out, you mean?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
And we're also sitting here with our marriage guru, Ted Lowe.
We got to get a different word.
Our marriage person, Ted Lowe.
There we go.
Our marriage knower of things more than we know.
Our marriage, yes.
Hashtag barely. I like that. Yeah.
Ted's been married for 23 years, I believe it is.
Yep.
And this week we're talking about, like I said, all about how do we make Christmas great for our marriage. But before we jump into that, Afton, I hear you have a public service announcement.
Oh, yeah, I do have a little PSA. Hey, you guys know where you get podcasts, probably on iTunes if you're normal, or if you have an Android.
Or
like
if they...
CJ, I don't know what you guys use, Google Play?
I get the CDs with the podcast mailed to my house.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's
if you
right.
don't know about that program, just
This
hit
won't
me up
work
on Instagram.
for you,
Yeah.
but for Android users, I think it's Google Play. And we want you guys to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, and we're not asking because we want to get money off of it, because we can't.
There's no money here.
That's not a thing. We want you to rate us 5 stars because did you know that if you do that, more people see our podcast? And if you like it and if you like us because we really like you, then maybe you could leave us a 5-star review so that more people can see us and know us.
And
How does that give you more when you leave the 5-star? How does that work?
well, it tells the internet that people like this podcast, and so when you search things like marriage or funny or
right.
I'm just
I
thinking
like
of
that you pointed at me.
buzzwords,
Yes.
like entertaining,
Yeah.
marriage, funny,
Unfiltered entertainment.
the
then
best.
We'll pop up.
Then we'll show up
Yeah.
right above This American Life or whatever.
Right.
Right above them.
Hopefully, This American Life. That's our goal. So can you guys please help us reach our goal of getting more
And
reviews than This American
if we
Life?
don't get enough 5-star reviews, Afton will
We're
be
shutting this thing down.
Afton will be kicked off the
I'll
podcast.
probably get fired.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't like the podcast, yeah.
But leave us a review. It's super easy, and all you have to do is type some things and press submit, and we see them and we read them, and then we'll cry from happiness that people actually listen to the things we say, and it'd be really great.
It
So-
would be your Christmas gift to us if you left that review. And you see how I'm tying that right back up here. We're tying that up, putting a little bow
We're just
on
going
it.
to put a bow on that segment, and we're going to move on.
And we're going to talk about
to
Christmas.
talking about presents.
But before
Christmas.
before we jump into talking about how to make Christmas great for our marriage, let's just tis the season.
Tis.
Let's talk about Christmas. Let's talk about, hey, Afton, what are some of the traditions you had growing up?
Christmas traditions I had growing up. We made
Yeah,
puppy
yeah.
chow. You know, puppy
Okay.
chow is like the peanut butter and or
Yep.
caramel, but powdered sugar in the
Caramel.
Chex Mix. It's caramel, and you shake it in the bag, and you have to heat the caramel up. So we did that, and we had puppy chow all the time.
Every year?
Every year, all the time. It was always available. So that was a big one. Let's see. Oh, putting Christmas lights up on the house. Now, even we drive around and we look. You could do a quick Google search. You can find like the neighborhoods near you that do the best lights.
Yeah.
We go to Starbucks, we get the hot chocolate, we drive around. The first year, we took our brand new puppy, maybe when she was a puppy, we took her to see the Christmas lights because I wanted her to experience Christmas just like us. Well,
Maybe.
the stop and going was not a friend of Maybe's stomach, and she threw up all over Julian's seat, and it was hilarious. So that's a good Christmas tradition.
Yep. The sound.
So did you grow up with, what were some of your Christmas traditions growing up?
I mean, the puppy chow, or is that current day,
Yeah,
present
puppy
day?
chow.
No, that's now.
Oh,
No,
that-
that's then.
Okay.
I remember my mom did that.
yeah, so
I don't know how to cook puppy chow.
I don't think you cook. No, never mind.
I love it. It's called puppy chow. I think that's dog food, isn't it?
Oh, I know. Okay, we always kicked off the Christmas season the night of Thanksgiving or the night after Thanksgiving by watching Christmas Vacation, which
Of course.
we all have memorized. We probably watch it like a million times between Christmas and Thanksgiving. And then that TBS does that 24 Hours of a Christmas Story the day before Christmas Eve.
Right.
So we watch that a lot too.
Yeah.
And then I always watch Home Alone because that's the best movie ever made.
So that's just your own personal tradition?
My own personal tradition that I make sure happens because my parents were not fans of Home Alone. I don't know why. They just thought it was lame. So I just watched it on my own. But I love
Maybe
it.
because it's a kid's movie.
I don't think so. It's really good.
Here's my question: how could he order the pizza? Call to order the pizza, but he couldn't call police.
He didn't want to call the police. He'd get in trouble for being alone by himself, and he'd have to go somewhere.
I've always wondered about that.
Wow.
There are many
Sorry to destroy
places in that movie that would not work today. Like the alarm's not going off. Hello,
Yeah.
we have them on our
Find
phones
friends
now.
so you could see where
So-
the kid is.
Yeah.
Ted, are you saying there are plot holes in Home Alone? Are there
Sorry,
some-
yes, that's how I rob
I
Joy.
don't believe that. I can come up with an answer for all of your holes.
Ted, now what about you? Did you grow up with any Christmas traditions?
So you guys have heard me mention before, my mom passed away when I was 10. Let's go total downer at the beginning of this podcast. But here's what was great before. Here's some of my memories of her is my mom was probably the worst housekeeper in the history of the world, but everybody loved her.
Ooh, I like her too.
So our house was a little bit wrecked. And Christmas, like when everyone was trying to make it look like a catalog, she was the bipolar opposite. So we would go to my great grandfather's farm and we would cut down like it's a random tree just on the farm.
It
And
wasn't a Christmas looking tree?
It was, but not the
Okay.
kind that like they wouldn't,
It's like this maple looks nice.
There's magnolia in our house.
sticker bush is going to work perfect. So it's just those old school like sprucey tree things, and so we would cut it down. And then she would just look at my brother and I and go, "You decorate it." So one year, you see pictures of us, and we've blown up these reindeer, and we've just stuck the reindeer in the tree. And there's like lights that probably have like 8 of them that are working, and so. That's what she would just like do whatever you want to do. And one year we couldn't find the stockings, so we just put socks up there. Then the next day they were brand new stockings. So there were things like that she was kind of great at. And then after she passes away, and this is really bad, my dad didn't know that he didn't have to purchase everything that we put on the list. So we learned about 3 Christmases in after she had passed away going, oh my gosh, this is like the lottery. So you could put whatever. And so, yeah, that was kind of our tradition. A little bit was asking for too many things.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That obviously does not happen in the house of Nancy Lowe. We've always, the traditions are kind of, you can pick 3 things. Which I think is for some of their friends, it's like, only baby Jesus got 3 things. You're getting more from Jesus for Christmas.
You're going to get 1 thing of frankincense, 1 thing of myrrh, and you're going to be happy about
And
it.
you're going to be really happy with it. So it is kind of crazy. So yeah, so we do the 3 gifts, I think would be our tradition. And we too ride around and look at lights a lot.
Yeah.
My boys don't care a lot. Teddy cares. She almost explodes with excitement. She's been excited since October. So she's very excited. CJ, what about you? What'd you grow up with, and what about you guys now?
So quickly growing up, we didn't have a ton of traditions. Honestly, the only ones I can really think of revolved around food and people, obviously. But like for whatever reason, Christmas Eve we would have spaghetti for dinner. I don't know why.
The traditional Christmas spaghetti.
The traditional Christmas spaghetti.
Same thing you have on a Monday night.
Right. Merry
You don't
Christmas.
feel like cooking. Yeah.
Right. Ragu. All right.
Nice.
Hey, you do you. You got your traditions.
And then Christmas morning, we'd have sausage casserole.
Yum.
And then Christmas dinner, our grandparents would come over, and they were actually so this is a weird tradition, but like they weren't actually my grandparents. My grandparents passed away when I was younger, and so they were actually our neighbors. And so they were like these 70-year-old. It's a
so
70-year-old
cute.
couple, and we lived next to them for 15, 18 years, and
Did you
every
call 'em
Christmas.
Grandma?
And
That's so
they would come
cute.
over every Christmas dinner. I don't know. We didn't have a specific meal there, but like every Christmas.
That's fantastic.
So those are probably the 3 that stuck out to me. And then now, the only real tradition that Terry and I have, and I'm sure I've shared this on the podcast before, but we go to Chili's on Christmas Eve. So
Wow.
we
You may be more dedicated to Chili's than I am.
So it's the best people watching you'll have all year. It's like that movie. What's the movie where the Santa Claus, where that Christmas Eve he goes out to that restaurant
IHOP. He goes
or
to
whatever.
IHOP.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing.
And they
You're
had
like,
none of the food.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's like it's that experience. You're like, why are people here on Christmas Eve? It's that,
Yeah.
but at Chili's.
That's really awesome.
So that's what
It's a
we've
great
got.
tradition. I love that.
So we're talking all about Christmas traditions, and this is kind of fun, right? But really, the focus of our conversation this week is about how do we make Christmas great for our marriage? Because oftentimes we have expectations about Christmas with our spouse. We make assumptions. And honestly, we try to make Christmas great for all these other people, our in-laws, our kids. You know, you try to make Christmas great for your budget, even right?
pets, yeah.
Your pets. But we often forget about our marriage in the midst of all that. And we often, like I said, come into marriage with assumptions about Christmas and how it's going to work with our family. So before we dive into this conversation about making Christmas great for our marriage, let me just ask you guys. So what assumptions did you make going into marriage about Christmas? Like, what did you envision your marriage would look like when it comes to celebrating this holiday?
Well, like every normal American person, I assumed that we would get a real tree. A real Christmas tree that smells like a Christmas tree that is real and has all of the little needles fall onto the floor anytime you bump into
bugs.
it. No bugs, no squirrels, only tree, no bugs. And that was not an assumption that Hudson had. His assumption was like, I think let's just use this fake one that we paid $50 for, and we could just use it every year, and we don't have to spend money every year, which is the incorrect
I like
assumption.
the way he thinks.
Yeah, no. That's the wrong way, CJ.
They're less flammable.
That's
Yeah.
maybe true, but they don't smell good, they don't look good, and they are terrible. And it is an incorrect assumption that you should have a fake tree. So, year one that we were married, he brought down the fake tree, and I was like, no. We went and got a real tree, used both trees as a compromise.
Are they? I just picture them both
Side by
right
side.
next to each other in the living room.
Yeah.
Are they in two different rooms? Two
They were
different
in two
ends
different
of the
rooms.
room?
They were at least in two different
Okay,
rooms.
okay.
And then I think the second year we let Julian take the fake tree in his room, and then somehow the tree went missing. I don't even know where it went. I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
It just like
It
disappeared.
could be at Goodwill, could
And
it?
yeah, year three, I don't know where it went. So it wasn't in the attic anymore. So now we just get real trees.
Those
a
roof
good
rats are
question.
real tough to get rid of. They just chew right through those things.
It just Santa must have taken it with him when he went back up the chimney.
He's like, I need this.
CJ, are you guys fake or real tree?
We are fake tree.
I could have seen that coming from a mile away. Okay.
But we have the Martha Stewart fake tree. So it does like you. This tree looks
Do
better.
you guys have
than real
allergies?
trees.
I bet you have
says
allergies.
with a disdain in her voice.
You know what?
You're
I
like,
don't
oh,
even
we
wanna-
can't because we have
don't wanna
allergies. We'll just
answer
get this
that.
plastic tree.
Like we have, like whatever you're picturing as far as the fake tree goes. No. Our fake tree looks better than your real tree. I can promise.
I very much doubt that.
Martha Stewart disagrees with you.
Well, I disagree with Martha Stewart about many things.
All right. Now, Ted.
That's not surprising.
Yeah. You and Martha
Like,
Stewart.
how to pay
would-
taxes.
Oh,
Okay.
poor Martha. After all she's done,
Martha.
Is that show with Snoop Dogg now? Have you seen that?
I've heard of this. Is it
Yeah.
great?
I don't know. I haven't watched it. It just
pretty
seems like
fantastic.
it just seems too much of a paradox for me to watch.
Okay. So Ted, first, really quick, real or fake tree, and then what assumptions? If you can remember back when you were getting married.
Way back
What-
when
I
I was a
mean-
pilgrim.
Yes.
Yeah.
What assumptions did you bring into your marriage?
Yeah, so we lived out of state. We lived across the country. So it's kind of started with, I love this actually, like with our tree, for us, ornaments had to mean something. So we've always done that. So every time we would travel, we would get an ornament. So our picture of our first tree has like 7 ornaments on it because we both were pretty passionate about not having a mall tree. So if you come over to see our Christmas tree now, there's not one ornament that's the same. So they all have been from grandparents or somewhere when we've traveled. So so that was a tree thing back in the day. But we had to start deciding like, okay, when we come home, how are we spending time with family? Who gets Christmas Day? Like, which family does that? So that's kind of where the tension started a little bit. And not in a bad way.
Those are
It's
the
just
worst.
reality.
And I'm sorry, people are going to want to ask, real or fake tree? Because you didn't answer that.
Oh,
part.
so sorry. Yeah, definitely fake.
Okay.
Well,
That's okay. The people have spoken. Okay, we're
This
gonna move
is-
this. We're gonna move this conversation ahead.
There
I
is
think.
going to be anarchy on our Twitter feeds.
yeah.
Okay, so and for me, I would just say like I don't know if I walked into Christmas with a whole lot of expectations that first year. But what's interesting is that I think all of us picture, when we picture marriage and Christmas, we picture doing it our way and with our families. Like, you know, I never like pictured, oh, this first Christmas is going to be great with my in-laws. You know what I mean? You don't picture that part of it. And I think that's where my assumptions were off base, because you just don't picture like, oh yeah, we're going to drive really far, visit them.
Yeah.
You just picture it with your family, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's then maybe when you just got married. And if you're listening to this and you're newlyweds, maybe that's where you are right now. But for some of us who have been married for a little bit longer, so what are the stressors you feel now when it comes to marriage and Christmas?
I mean, I'm not really a newlywed anymore, but I still feel the stress of having to figure out the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day situation, because I think a lot of people like alternate, but we like, with Julian, we kind of have like a split custody thing. So like sometimes he's with us, sometimes he's not. So every year it's kind of like, do we have him on Christmas Eve? Do we have him on Christmas Day? Okay, so really we need to celebrate Christmas 3 days before Christmas, because that's when we have him. And so we need to make sure we have the presents way before. And then it's just like this whole like logistical thing for
Sure.
us, trying to figure out where we're going to be and who we're going to be with, and how do we get to Hudson's side of the family with Julian, and then how do we get there without him and my parent. Like, it's this whole logistical thing. I feel like every year it's like we're going through the whole like where are we going to be when thing all over again every single year.
Yeah, so the blended family thing brings a whole different layer of complexity, huh?
Yeah.
Because it's already complicated. Then you add, wow, now
Yeah.
you've got
You just have
multiple sets of
a
grandparents
lot
and-
you're trying to juggle. Yes, all the grandparents, like, so it's just, there's a lot you're trying to like make sure we're checking all the boxes for and
Totally.
figuring out all of that. So I feel like we're still trying to figure that out every year, but also just money, because I want to buy all of the presents that I can think of, and we don't have enough money to buy them all. So those are
right.
big stressors. Yeah, those are mine basically.
Yeah.
But also I probably feel like the stress of like, maybe it's a girl thing. I don't know if maybe you guys feel this pressure too, but like, don't you feel the pressure of like making sure that everyone else's Christmas is living up to high expectations? Like, I kind of feel that way. Like, I'm like, I need to make sure Hudson feels like it's Christmas. I need to make sure Julian feels like it's Christmas. Like, I need to make sure we check the boxes of like going to see the lights, or making sure I have peppermint cocoa, or making sure like we have a Christmas vibe going on,
Yeah.
so that everyone
Yeah,
feels
you
like
gotta
it's
get your
Christmas
Christmas
time.
vibe. Yeah,
Yeah. And so you kind of feel the pressure of just like, oh yeah, it's December and I need to make sure I go to Trader Joe's and get all this stuff to make sure it feels like Christmas.
Yeah, Nancy has a really hard time on Christmas Day. Like, there's almost a depression for her that comes because there's all this buildup. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't like the pressure of holidays. Like, she doesn't like the pressure of her birthday. She doesn't like the pressure of Christmas. And so she would say, if she were here, it's a mild depression for her. Like, oh, because there's all this buildup, all this
Yeah.
buildup. And then, so that's why we're like, sometimes we'll
The
go to the movies.
expectations
yeah.
for the day is so high.
Especially, and you know, not, and again, like you said, it could be men or women, but
Yeah.
usually one in the
feels
marriage.
like kind of like the
Yeah, feels the
pressure
pressure.
of it.
Yeah.
So what are the stressors for you then, Ted? Is it navigating some of that with Nancy, or is it what is it for you?
Well, I think the good thing for us, there's a little bit more simplicity over the years. Some of these things have kind of ironed themselves out. Like, Nancy's mom is really, really gracious. And Nancy's mom is way more flexible with holidays, I think. Like, you never know. Because, because her mom is flexible, we can kind of keep things more traditional on my side of the family, which feels important to them, that they're keeping those traditions. But I think some of the stressors are what to get the kids for Christmas and what they want, because it's become so commercial. Like, it makes me want to puke a little bit. And I think, wow, how did we turn Christmas into this? So I want to celebrate Christmas. I want them to have great, memories of that. But I think some of the stresses I feel is the financial part of how much do we want to do, because it seems a little excessive to me. And Nancy would do a lot of the shopping, and then I'd get toward the end of it, and I kind of look, let me beef that up a little bit.
Same.
Yeah,
Me
and then
too.
and now I feel gross even saying that out loud. Like,
Yeah.
why did I do that?
I know, but I always do that too. And then on Christmas Day, you're like, we got too much.
Right.
You're
Right.
like, we did too much.
CJ, what about you? What stresses do you feel?
Well, I mean, it's everything that you guys are saying. Yes, it's the family, in-laws, all that kind of thing. But I mean, I'll speak more specifically. Like this year, Terry is due to have our first kid in a couple of weeks. You know, we're recording this a little bit ahead of time, but
Isn't she due on Christmas?
she's due on Christmas Day.
That's
So you talk
awesome.
about, you know, there's a lot going on.
You have a
And
very
it's-
good excuse to not go anywhere.
As excited as we are, there's also a lot of stress, you know, making sure bags are packed the right way, baby's room's ready, all that kind of stuff. And then, okay, Terry's family's in North Carolina. Who's coming down? Who's staying with us? Who's going to help? You know, that kind of a thing. So there's just, you know, there's 100 little things there that we're navigating that, you know, as when it comes to our conversation this week, that marriage feels like, you know, way down the list of things to worry about and think about in this season. And I really think that's what we're trying to get at today is like, okay, we all have these things going on. It could be anywhere from we're about to have a baby to in-laws to stepkids to all that, right? And what do we do in that moment when we realize that, oh, okay, I want to prioritize my marriage in this season, but I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. So I think, you know, we've shared our examples. I think some of the most common, you know, statistically, some of the most common stresses that people are listening, you know, it's the lack of time. We're busier than ever. You know, you're at all these parties, all these school functions. You're just like, you know, all your margin time, your breathing room is usually spent in some gym at some school or, you know, at the office Christmas parties, which some of these things aren't exactly like life-giving at times, can be. There's the lack of money. Like I would go, just the average American spends $750 a year on Christmas. That is a lot of pressure. You know, stats show too that divorce rate goes up in January and February, and a lot of the thought is because the Christmas bills come rolling in, or sometimes people are like waiting to split up till after Christmas, so that they don't do that to the kids. And so there's just all this pressure to spend all this money, and you know, if ever keeping up with the Joneses is happening, I feel like it happens around Christmas. We'll listen to our kids' friends. Oh, well, I got this and we got this. And there's that need to compete. There's this pressure of, you know, if you're married to someone, you know, gifts are important to them, and not in materialistic ways, but are you thinking about it?
Sometimes in the materialistic ways.
Yeah. A little bit. Yeah, like you said, talk about Christmas after what you said earlier about presents. But I think there's that pressure, you know, to buy the right gift, those kind of things. And then something we've mentioned a couple times, you know, where and who to spend the holidays with. Can be the most common is how do we do this? And again, back to the blended families, that's kind of tough. And the result of all this is couples are usually exhausted or can be. They feel kind of disconnected, even a less interest in sex. You're just feeling like the whole thing is a little bit snowballing, and so I think the idea that I'd love is people are thinking about is the great thing with this podcast, I feel like we get to pause the crazy. Like, and, you know, if people are listening, like we get to pause and go, wait a minute, let's call crazy. What about our Christmases are crazy? What are things that are happening culturally that no one's calling it because everyone's doing it? Like, what are those things? It's like because everybody does this, we need to do this. For a couple just to stop and pause and go, okay, what do we need to do? What makes sense for us as a family? And start talking about some of those things. And because when you think about Christian as a believer, I feel like, oh, have we ever forgotten, like, what are we celebrating? You know, what are we celebrating? It's the birth of Jesus. And as a believer, there's something that's so tender about that and beautiful about that when we forget it, then we get all caught up in all this other stuff. So I think that's part of this thing is just getting back to the heart of why are we doing this?
So why does that help though? Why does getting back to, you know, because you hear that all the time, right? Oh, you know, you got to get back to the real,
Christmas,
you know, Christ back in Christmas, the true meaning of Christmas. How does that help your marriage though? Like, what does that mean?
I think by answering that questions through that filter, all of a sudden, when you start talking about these different things, the weight of them hopefully is not as heavy. Things become a little clearer, and I think things become more simplified to say, wait a minute, we want to keep this thing simple, especially when you have kids, because all that noise and all that clutter and all that movement, I think it really distracts from teaching kids or showing kids, wow, this is a big deal for our faith. As a believer, this is a big deal. And talk about the humility of how Christ came into the world, and then yet we're commercializing it so much. So I think it's just like, hey, it's not that we have to be the anti-Christmas people. It's not that, people have different views on whether Santa comes or Santa does it, and how does that work with your faith. But I think us coming back to that and saying, okay, we're trying to celebrate the birth of Jesus as a couple, but also as a family. And I think when you start thinking about the financial piece of this, I think that's where that lens maybe helps the most. And also having grace towards each other to try to figure out a win-win, a compromise that, hey, we need to see everybody's family and we want to make that great and we don't want to make that chaotic. So I just think it's the lens of faith that really matters.
I kind of like all of the hustle and bustle and all of the commercials and all of the shopping. So
Does it add to your Christmas vibe?
it does. It adds to the Christmas vibe. I think you just have to keep it in check too. And I think like I'm the kind of person that likes going to the mall, and I never go to the mall, but I like going to the mall to like feel the Christmas chaos. I like it. But then I think if you still take the time to kind of do your traditions that make you feel like, okay, we're bringing some solace into it, or like tonight we're only going to sit on the couch and watch a movie and drink peppermint tea or whatever. Like we don't drink tea.
Does Julian love peppermint tea?
No, but I buy it every year regardless because it's there.
Drink it.
It looks Christmassy.
We're celebrating.
But as long as you can like find the moments where you're like, okay, we're going to connect as a family, we're going to connect as a couple, and we're going to chill and make it, experience the holiday together. Whether it's having a movie night or going to a Christmas Eve service or going, whatever it is that kind of just brings it back to like, it's about connecting with people and celebrating. And
that's the thing I love about this whole idea of purchasing experiences or having experiences versus stuff. I mean, you talk about all the things that we talked about. None of us talked about growing up, and we would get this certain kind of present, right?
Well, I don't know. You just didn't give me a chance to talk about the Furby I got that year, so.
Ooh, that's a good question. What was your
Did you
favorite?
get a Furby?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Well,
got
of
a
course,
Furby.
yeah. Me and my sister both got Furbies, and you could make them talk to each other. And then those things stay in your closet for the next 20 years, and they just randomly start talking to you in the middle of the night.
The Furbies. There's a thing of talking about, and maybe Furby was an experience for you, but studies show that like experiences versus stuff, that we look back experiences more fondly than they really were. We think back on Disney and we don't think about the long lines, we think about the experiences. And I think the same thing is true. Like, what experiences are you creating? And I'm not suggesting that, that we stop shopping or we stop going to the mall, we stop those things. And again, if that's for you guys, you love the hustle and the bustle of that. I just think for a lot of people, they resonate with the exhaustion and the pressure. Like if part of that is busyness for you, and I go to the mall and it's beautiful there and it's crazy watching all the crazies and it's fun, that it's whatever works for the two of you. But it's asking those questions, going, okay, what do we really, really want Christmas? What's important for us? What's important for our kids? What are we modeling for our kids? And I just think I love the idea of this episode is people pausing and saying, what do we want this to be, instead of just letting it happen to them. John Gottman talks a lot about, he's a researcher, talks a lot about that healthy, happy couples have what he calls shared meaning. And they have these rituals and these roles and these goals and these symbols that mean something to their marriage, that they kind of are doing this together. So I just want to encourage people, like, if you're pausing before Christmas, and that's what we hope people are doing, what are those things? And maybe it's something you've been wanting to do for a long time, and you've said, hey, we've always said we wanted to go do X, Y, Z. So it's really thinking about, how do we make this this Christmas have shared meaning to us and not just shared chaos?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like, though, because I think Christmas is a time where you're kind of disconnected from your spouse. So really what you're trying to say is like have experiences with your spouse. Yeah. I kind of feel like, and maybe we do need to try harder, but don't you feel like maybe sometimes it's just like, we just got to get through this season, and at the back end of Christmas, we can chill together and like just make it normal. Because sometimes you're just going and you need to go, or you have to go places and you have to go to this party and you have to go to this thing and this family event. You don't want to. And then after it's all said and done, the day after Christmas, you get to just like be yourselves again, and then you can connect.
Yeah, I get that tension. I think I mean,
there's just seasons you have to get through
the filter
to get to the other side.
Yeah.
There's a lot of have-tos at Christmas. I think what you're saying. I just think we need to have some get-tos in the middle of it, like to decide on some get-tos. I mean, like, we got to do the parties, so we don't want to go. We got to do those things, but just adding in, what are some get-tos? What are some things, or how do we make these things that quote unquote we have to better? And if your tradition is more like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have our Christmas the day after Christmas. See, I kind of like, because you're the boss of you, right? Like that's the thing with everybody listening. You're the boss of you. And I think sometimes we forget that we're the boss and we let culture be the boss or the chaos be the boss. And we go, no, we can do what we want to do.
Yeah.
So CJ, what's a get to that you guys do every Christmas?
I mean, I think it is that Christmas Eve Chili's thing. It's we're enduring, if you want to use that, more dramatic word, the craziness of Christmas. But my family knows, Terry's family knows, we carve out Christmas Eve to, we're going to go out to dinner, just the two of us. And now you're laughing.
I am laughing.
Why are you laughing at Chili's, our sponsor?
I'm obviously not laughing at Chili's because if there's anywhere you're going to spend Christmas Eve, it should be at Chili's.
Okay. Also, they're one of the only places open.
Or the Waffle House.
Right.
Man, I love Waffle House.
Here's
good for you. Here's what I have to say. Good for you.
Everybody hear that Afton really tried. That she was
good for you, CJ. I personally could not feel okay saying to my family, me and Hudson are going to go to Chili's for Christmas Eve. Bye.
Well, I mean, this goes back to, more history, right? But longtime listeners of the podcast know that before I worked, where I work now, I worked in retail. And so I had to be in town for pretty much, the day before Thanksgiving, the day after. And I had to be in town the day before and the day after Christmas too. So I was kind of stuck. And I would work on Christmas Eve till 4, 5, 6 o'clock, right? And it was at that point that I was just like, I'm done with this. I just want to go somewhere and not, talk to people really.
So it was
right?
kind of a more
so
convenient
it became this thing that was like, I'm done with the Christmas retail season. It's Christmas Eve at 6 o'clock. I don't have I don't have it within me to go to, a family thing right now. What I really need to do is go somewhere and be quiet. And that's what became our Chili's tradition. And so even though I don't work retail anymore, it became this really special moment where Terry and I could pause in the middle of the Christmas season, because I do like the whole wait until after the Christmas day, that's fine. Or, wait until January and have your moment. But there is something special about in the Christmas season, while the music is still playing, to pause and say, this moment is for us. We'll give our families.
Of Chili's.
We'll give our families Christmas Day, the day after, the 2 days after, 3 days after. But while it's still here, there is something a little bit more special about pausing in the moment too.
Perfect example is you guys get to choose. Like, you chose, this is what works for us. It kind of started with this situation, but it's going, that's kind of what we love to do. We like to go, and you're the boss of you. And so that's the thing of going, this is what our tradition, and that's what I'm talking about, is going, what is that for us? And it's okay to make time just for the two of you. I think for us, after I'm with you, we couldn't get by with that, just given all the family we have, all the extended family we have, and we save those things for a little bit later. But again, for you guys, perfect. That's I just want people to choose. You know what I mean? I just think that's the whole thing of it. Choose this, because if you don't choose, or you're doing things, your heart has said no, but your mouth has said yes, and you're in the middle of it, and it's all this yucky tension. That's the thing, is let's talk about this on the front end. Let's decide this on the front end.
Because we couldn't choose the days after Christmas, because we're usually traveling in North Carolina visiting family Christmas Day and the days following. So it's not like we'd be like, the day after Christmas is for us. No. We're in the middle of family at that point,
Yeah.
But anyways, what is your thing, Afton? What's your get to with Hudson?
I mean, for us, I feel like the whole holiday season we just spend kind of together as a family. I mean, there's three of us, and so it's not like there's a bunch of people around most of the time, and we kind of we do the looking at lights in the car together, and we go pick a Christmas tree together, and we do all of it together anyway. So I guess.
So you're already doing it though, in a way.
Yeah, I guess I'm not trying to find a moment during the Christmas season where it's just me and Hudson having alone time. I haven't done that before.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good clarifier. And I don't think necessarily, if we're talking about shared meaning for a married couple, that's what the goal of Christmas is. Let's create that. I think for us, we're the same way. Like we're not getting a lot of date nights during the Christmas play, but we are trying to, part of our shared meaning is being with our kids. And if for me personally, like I know a lot of people go, oh, we don't want to go to the family or whatever. We actually love that, especially during the holidays, because you're with your people, right? You're with your people that, they don't care what you do at work. They don't care. You're just their people. Like they don't understand. Nobody in our family understands what I do anyway, and I love it. They don't care about any of that stuff.
It's a real escape.
Oh, it's a real escape. And then because I know my wife's going to struggle with depression on Christmas, we always have family at our house because it keeps things busy. She doesn't feel the need to like, hey, I'm having to manage everything and I'm having to do all the talking. So there's lots of people around. So for us, I think our get to is getting to be with a lot of family.
Yeah. How is that making Christmas great in your marriage, though?
I think when we are experiencing something together, I think that's great for a marriage. Like we just did Disney with our kids, and I think that was great for our marriage because we knew we both worked to pay for that.
Yeah.
We got to see our kids grow up. We're the only...
I mean, I think what really matters is that you're creating something together.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're creating the Chili's things
Yeah.
with Terry. You're creating
Not
a
a sponsor.
Christmas day with Nancy.
We wish.
Chili's our sponsor.
We wish. Oh, yeah.
One
Well,
day,
it was our
one day
is
they'll
our
notice
sponsor.
us
Well, and
if we
it
get
make-
enough 5-star reviews.
with 5-star reviews.
But
you're not taking out your stress on your spouse either. Like to go, those are those moments. Hey, we're going to create these moments for our family, but we're going to be careful to limit the stress as much as possible. And when we're feeling it, don't take it out on them because they're the easiest. You're at the family get together, passive aggressive comments from the in-laws are floating around, you're frustrated with them. And we've talked about that before. You're frustrated with them, but you take it on your spouse. So it's just a thing of like, I think it's just the tone of Christmas. Like what's your internal tone or what are you putting out there? Are you scurried and frustration? Are you present? Because I think that's always a temptation, but Christmas brings that out even more. Or it can.
Yeah. But it comes down to identifying what's good or great for your marriage and figuring out what that looks like, this season. Because for a lot of listeners, I imagine spending time with family is not, the thing that makes their marriage, healthy and great.
But you still have to do it.
That's
Yep.
where it's like it's survival mode,
Yep.
in some of those
Yep.
situations. So it's figuring out what does make your marriage thrive and healthy and great, and figuring out what that looks like. So we've this is a big conversation, right? But Ted, we always like to boil things down to one simple thing. So we've talked a whole lot about making Christmas great and a good thing for your marriage. But when it comes down to it, what do you want us to walk away with this week?
Just think, simple thing is to talk about Christmas traditions before Christmas. A lot of times we don't talk about the thing until we're in the middle of the thing. We don't know what we want their Christmas to be until it's, we don't know that we want it to be less stressful or we want to spend less money until we're in the midnight or until we get the bills. So it's just on the front end, having a conversation. Go to Chili's, stress-free Chili's. Get the 2 for $22. Is it 2 for $22?
Yeah.
2 for $20.
2 for $20.
2 for $22. We've talked about this. Inflation.
Inflation.
Oh, okay.
And so what we want to do to help people do that, we've got a few questions that we're going to post in our show notes that we think would help tee up those conversations. And they are, what does Christmas mean to you? How did you celebrate Christmas growing up? What was your favorite Christmas memory as a kid? If you could create the perfect Christmas traditions, what would they be? How is the way you see Christmas different from me? How is the way I see Christmas different? The same as me? And how do we compromise? Because a lot of this has got to be compromised.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, with all the in-laws, with blended families and different things, there's a lots of compromises that need to be made, and just to talk that through. But again, I feel like couples can talk when they're not in the middle of it, right? We can have really great conversations when we're not in the heat of it and we're just talking about it. So I love the idea of people sitting at Chili's or their favorite perfect 5-star restaurant.
Yeah.
That's a lot like Chili's.
Yeah. Because Chili's is basically 5 stars.
For sure.
And what people don't, I hope they understand.
Similar
is-
to our podcast is
That's right.
5 stars.
And how you can rate it on iTunes and Google Play Store.
And people will get more, right? If they, we are not making fun of Chili's. I wonder if people think we're sarcastic about Chili's because
No,
we mean it.
Go to Chili's on the regular.
Right.
I think after this is over, we should go to Chili's.
Yes.
Well, just to recap there, if you missed it or if you were driving and you didn't catch it, the one simple thing is talk about Christmas and Christmas traditions with your spouse, before Christmas. And to find a list of those questions that Ted was rattling off there, you visit merrypeople.org/podcast. You'll find those. So, hey, get to your favorite
And
Chili's
they're in
booth.
our show notes.
Yeah. Get to your Chili's booth and just pull up this episode page. They'll be right there for you. And we hope that it really spurs on some great conversations and some great moments for you and your spouse in this busy but awesome Christmas season.
Thanks, CJ, for being on this podcast.
You're welcome, Afton. Thank you for being on this podcast. Ted, thank you for being on this podcast.
Oh, no. Thank you.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and thank you for listening to the Married People Podcast. If you want more marriage resources that can make your marriage better, check out our website, marriedpeople.org. Until next time, I'm CJ.
I'm Afton.
I'm Ted, and I have a surprise for you guys. Are you ready? Hold on.
And just when you thought this
I
podcast
hope
was
it's the
about to
NSYNC
end.
Christmas album.
Oh, wow.
I recorded this. This is me.
This is you?
You doing what?
Yeah. Playing the song. I'm lying.
But I was going to say, so we don't have to pay royalties on this, or we do?
No.
Ted just pulled out a guitar, and this is what's happening.
I'm sorry. You can't have Christmas without Christmas songs, right?
And thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Merry Christmas.